it's reinterpreted as if we are dealing with a point of view shot. Here we encounter what Lacan calls gaze as object. Precisely because, again, we get the gaze which cannot be attributed to the subject. We all know, to give you another example of it, these uncanny moments in our daily lives when we get sight of our own image. For example, if you are in a bathroom with two mirrors which are not coordinated, you know this strange phenomenon where through this double mirroring you can get a view of yourself but not face to face. You can see in the double mirror yourself from a side perspective. And at least, okay, maybe I'm the idiot here, but at least for me, the effect is always minimally terrifying. In the sense that you are, as it were, deprived of your eye, literally. Your eye is watching you from the outside. And something like this, I claim, takes place in that shot. Now let's go further. How this eye is objectivized in Hitchcock's Vertigo. First, it's incredible to see at what level Hitchcock manipulates censorship. Because now you will see a scene which is well known to you, and there is a detail in the scene which is totally, usually overlooked, but I think it's crucial. You remember, I hope everybody knows the movie, after Scotty saves Madeleine from water, from the sea under Golden Gate Bridge, he brings her to his apartment, and you remember then the scene, no? How in his apartment, before entering the bedroom with Madeleine, the camera moves across the room, and you see above a kind of a kitchen sink, her underwear dry, being to be dried, hanging on a rope. The idea being, of course, that he undressed her, that is to say, that he must have seen her naked. Interestingly enough, do you know that this was the scene where Hitchcock had to fight terribly with censorship? And the censorship won, but nobody notices it. And that's the mystery of censorship here. Because we automatically assume that that's underwear. But let's see the scene. It's not. But nobody notices it. So again, you got the point of my question. For whom is this staged? Just look carefully. Are we already too late? No. Look at it. Look in detail. It's not underwear. But I asked all of my friends, and everyone thinks it's underwear. Because we expect it. It's logical to be. So I asked you an elementary question. Stop. For which gaze what was the censorship afraid of? Not for viewers' morality. All viewers automatically assume this is Madeleine's underwear. But what were they afraid of? They said just it shouldn't really be underwear. But for whom? No viewer notices it. So you see how effectively how ideology functions. Even this most naive, vulgar Hollywood censorship has to refer to a kind of naive, objectified view whose innocence has to be respected, even if it is noticed by no one. You know, it's not that the censorship prevented anyone from us, I don't know, imagining the nastiness or whatever. No, it's purely the gaze of the other. And this brings us to the point of how much more complex than we think, I claim today, the notion of belief is. Because, again, everyone believes he sees it. Who must be? Whose innocence? Who is the one whose innocent belief has to be maintained here? It's the function of what Lacan calls the big other at its purest. And this brings us again to the problematic of belief, very fashionable today, you know, terrorists, fundamentalists, do they really believe, and so on and so on. Here I follow my good friend, Austrian philosopher Robert Thaler, who recently developed in an extremely precise, convincing way, the idea that quite on the contrary, it's not that we today don't believe, we are cynical, always a distance, and that in some good old times they really believed. If anything, it's the exact opposite. His idea is that it is only with early modernity, Protestantism and so on, that the idea of this first-person belief, I really believe it, I stand behind it, emerged. His idea is that even in medieval times, like, you know, beliefs functioned more as, how should I call them, more like some kind of matter of politeness, social play. It doesn't mean that you personally really believed in it. And Robert Fowler demonstrates in a way, okay, to give you first another example of this ambiguity, we all know Edith Wharton's The Age of Innocence. But who is innocent there? Okay, to speak in the movie terms, Winona Ryder, the young wife. But as we learn at the end, she knew it all the time. So it's not that, insofar as she stands for the previous, more naive society, it's not that before they believed. Before, on the contrary, before they were less naive. Before, prior to this break of modernity, they were able to combine sincere belief paradoxically with pure knowledge with real radical knowledge of how things really stand. And Robert Fowler's thesis is that, on the contrary, if anything, it's so-called postmodern deconstruction, which is totally the attitude of radical belief, most naive belief, far from being skeptical. Why? Let's just look at it at a stylistic level. My good friend Judith Butler, my not so good friend Jacques Derrida or whoever, how can you directly identify them? They are afraid to say, this is it. Like, they will not say, this is a glass. They will say, might we not, under certain circumstances, reach the hypothesis that within our language game, maybe this we can consider this a glass. But you know what's the tragedy? The tragedy is that they are afraid that if they were to say, this is the glass, that they would really say, they still believe in it. Before, they knew it that you can say, this is a glass, and all these distanciations were included. So before they were less naive. It's precisely this fear of that you would commit, or like love would be another example. Today nobody says, I love you. At most you say, as the poets would say, I love you, or oh, maybe I love you, and so on. But the problem is that, as if it mattered, you can say, I love you, and of course you don't mean it, or whatever. I mean, it's always included, no? I mean, the distance and so on. Which is why I claim, this is what I find suspicious in so-called cultural studies. I think that the best definition of why is this term culture so popular today, I think it stands precisely for this fear of assuming beliefs, for distance towards belief. Because I think if it means anything today, culture, in this all-pervasive sense of cultural studies and so on, culture, I think, are social phenomena towards which precisely we maintain this minimal distance. Like religion is religion if you are supposed to believe in it. If not, it turns into a cultural phenomenon. And I think this was, for example, our hypocrisy, remember 2 years ago when the Taliban bombarded the Bamiyan Buddha statues. We were so enraged, but what was the problem? The problem was culture. Nobody said, oh my God, we believe in it. If anything, they were closer to belief, the Taliban. We respect it. And the ultimate paradox for me is that, how are those who take seriously their culture called, where they are called fundamentalist barbarians? I mean, that again, so precisely the term culture means we want to have our distance. Okay, so much about belief. Now, let's go on with Vertigo a little bit. I think if there ever was an anti-Platonic film, it's Vertigo. Why? The murderous fury which seizes Scotty when, at the end, he finally discovers that Judy, whom he tried to make into Madeleine, is Madeleine. This is precisely the fury of a deceived Platonist, when he perceives that the original he wanted to remake into a perfect copy is already itself